Like just the same way people like to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to the movies to watch a big white light on the screen.
Full of love.
That is sauce and full of love. Like people go to the movies to watch stories, and that's why we incarnate. We incarnate to experience storylines.
Yeah.
But we're here to help people move into like more fun storylines.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the intention, rather than the suffering based storylines that have been very predominant in the human experience. So but let me bring in the circle. They're always better than me at explaining these things, but sometimes I like to share how I've come to digest all this sort of thousands of hours of information about consciousness and creation in my version to share with you.
Welcome to Spread Your Third Eye podcast, where we're going to spread that third eye wide open and take you beyond the veils into other dimensions. We have Georgia Jean here.
Hello.
Coming through with a circle of light to come help uplift humanity.
Coming in vibrationally hot. Heating it up because we're in like the middle of like solar flare, solar eclipse shenanigans right now.
So for those who have not seen our previous episodes, why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, and what you're channeling to bring in the circle of light and what they do for humanity.
Sure. So, here's the elevator pitch. So basically, like 20 years ago, I was struggling as a comedian at the world famous Comedy Store right here in Hollywood. And I ended up having to leave that place, but I had been doing a lot of work on myself, including listening to people like Abraham Hicks and learning about law of attraction, trying to, manifest my dream career, but really being in a really challenging, difficult, kind of toxic environment at that time. So I left the Comedy Store, and about a week later, I had this knock you to the floor spiritual event where I made this spontaneous connection to the circle of light, who I channel now verbally. I've developed this ability to spontaneously channel them. And I think that was probably because I was a comedian. So I was open in my throat chakra. I was used to just opening up my mouth and stuff just coming out of it, basically. So that basically happened. And they came through, they busted through, and they're like, we're here, and we're here to help the planet, and you will help us. And I was kind of like, okay, not really understanding at that time what was going on in terms of this kind of massive evolutionary shift that's going on right now, and has been our work for the last 20 years to help people.
So I actually found Georgia Jean off of the documentary called Interviews with Extra Dimensionals, and she, in my opinion, was one of the best channelers when they channeled the circle of light and the broader perspective of everything is of all God, and that's the only thing that is real, and bending the matrix through love and acceptance and heart centering. I ended up calling her and working with her about 2.5 years ago, and she completely changed my life, even on a physical level. Some things that I was dealing with, like, on like candida and like, all sorts of things. Because on a physical level, there's always, most of the time so I think I'll ask the circle, but from my understanding, there's always an underlining emotional reason why you are manifesting any kind of sickness on a physical level. And then she also helped me manifest abundance and listen, I'm going to have a whole testimonial episode on the things that she's done, mind-blowing work that we have done together, that my reality has completely shifted, because what the circle of light will talk about is how to shift your reality, how to shift your core vibration. By the way, if you want to manifest, you're always manifesting. So you're always manifesting from the core vibration. So how to shift that into an authentically positive state, and instead of trying to like shove your anxiety down and be like, everything's going to work out. They have really taught me so much. And so I started this podcast because I was like, not only are they teaching me how to help my life on a personal level, that they're coming it through to say, listen, we're here to not just help you, but help humanity, help uplift humanity, pull you out of the fear, the wars, the angst, the anxiety.
The suffering of humanity, basically. And to kind of rewrite the energetic templates that are underneath that generate all these storylines that that create the suffering and the pain and the struggle that the human experience has had as what some of its core features
Yeah.
forever, basically.
So what they describe is how reality is actually formed. Like, you really are always in spirit form. You're never really detached from God, but you're almost like in a video game right now,
Yeah.
playing a video game.
Yeah.
And how to switch up the game
How
for
to switch up
yourself.
the game. Basically, the game of life is going through a huge shift. And yeah, exactly. It's sort of like we are generated by these programs that are essentially like the human programs. The human programs have collectively been agreed upon as being things like, decay and entropy of the body, the survival struggle. We've talked about this in other episodes, and we want to talk
Yeah.
about something different today. So go check out some of the other ones to understand a
Talk
little
about
bit
the
more about
basis.
those basic kind
Yeah.
of 3D programs that run our life unconsciously.
Yes.
We, as much as people want to learn about law of attraction and be like, oh, if I think positively, I can, manifest a new car. But we are manifesting all the time, and most of it is happening unconsciously. Like, Mia is not sitting there going, grow this beautiful hair, grow this beautiful hair, grow this beautiful hair.
I've been trying to do that, actually.
You probably have been, like, that's not
Here
what
goes the
it's
lie.
working, honey, but because it is beautiful. But you're also not going like, and grow my toenails at the
Yeah.
same time, and grow my eyelashes, and grow my. So when you actually know that, understand that so much is being unconsciously created that we're experiencing, if you can then learn to go into those levels where that unconscious creation is happening, then we have the opportunity to make radical changes and radical shifts in how we're experiencing reality is from every level, like our experience of our physical body, our internal states, our states of being, our direct quantum reality, which is the reality that we're directly engaged in. Like, Mia is sitting next to me, so she's part of my direct quantum reality right now. And then that indirect quantum reality, which is kind of like you viewing this show, you're indirectly interacting with us, even though I'm not actually in your living room right now. And so TV, social media, all of this is our history books, is our indirect quantum reality. All of that is being generated, all of that is being created, but where from? And that's what has been our work to help share where that's actually all coming from.
And I'm just going to remind everybody, you already are infinite abundance. You already are
Totally.
infinite joy, infinite, everything that you've ever wanted to be. You are God's child, or part of God, the
An
fabric of
aspect
God.
yeah.
And so we're with the Circle of Light is going to teach you through this podcast is how to get away from those programs that you developed as children, or maybe even
Incarnated with
generational.
some of it,
Yeah,
generational stuff.
it's just really a belief system. So we're gonna, through this work that I'm doing with her, teach you how to unlock that, to go in. I know I'm infinite abundance, therefore I'm going to attract infinite abundance in my life. But
And I just want to say, just for some people, the word God is very triggering as well.
Yeah.
So I would like to expand upon that, because there's a lot of arguing about what God is. And, when we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about the source of energy and the intelligence from which all creation comes. And there's a lot of ideas about what that looks about, but we're talking about that kind of infinite source of energy, the ocean of energy, and the intelligence behind it from which everything comes. So God is a great shorthand
Source.
word for that.
All consciousness.
Universal energy.
The oneness. So just know that when I say God, it's just
Yeah,
for short,
that's a
because I
short
don't
word.
need to
Yeah,
explain the
yeah.
all consciousness.
Yeah, all
I
consciousness
meant
every
God,
time.
whatever
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the same thing, and I do
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Just for some, because I know we're going to have different viewers coming from different streams and different backgrounds, and that's all fantastic. And I just want to get that kind of across. So
today, okay, we are going to talk about, we just had like an X class solar flare, X class 7.12 solar flare. And we are today, October 2nd, 2024, in a solar eclipse.
it's
in
a
Libra.
solar eclipse in Libra. And we're both Libras.
And we want to talk about the sun consciousness. Now, what do you mean the sun consciousness? It's like some burning planet out there. But actually, through my original work of studying near-death experiences, which led me to actually really believing in this work of channeling higher dimensions, because it was very similar to people that had died and gone beyond and then came back, been revived, and wrote about all this stuff about what life is really about and stuff like that. So one of the things that a book that I read, this gal came out of her body when she had died, and she saw that everything has consciousness. Everything, your chair, the light, the dress.
Yeah.
And so why would it all have consciousness is because the only thing that truly is real is God, or all consciousness. So you can't make anything out of anything else but God, or all consciousness.
Yeah.
So everything truly, even a rock,
It's from
is
that
truly made out
fabric of energy.
all consciousness. So when she's about to talk about the sun and bring the circle of light in, talking about the sun and what these solar flares are actually doing on a spiritual level, which is evolving us as a race, bringing in new consciousness, new light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about the sun consciousness, everything does have consciousness.
Everything has consciousness. And that's, again, that idea that everything is God. So you are innately part of that all consciousness. So, and you are innately connected to everything. And it's only the mind that creates that illusion of separation, that the piece of consciousness that makes up you is separate from the piece of consciousness that makes up Mia, and the piece of consciousness that even makes this chair. This chair is from the same fabric of universal energy, but resistance is just it is allowing it to resist being me right now, basically. Anyway, that's another whole thing. But so when we talk about, and it's cool we're actually talking about like what is God, what is consciousness, because the sun energy, I think, I can't remember what year it was, about maybe 2015 or 14 or 15. This energy started coming through our conference calls, and I have no control over what happens like in our Monday night awakening calls, or like, I'm not like, okay, tonight let's channel this. It just starts to pump in. And I just started hearing like sun, and I'm like, I was getting all like heated up, as happens when I channel high frequency energies. And I'm like, is this the sun? And the first week I channeled it, I could only really run the energy. But the next time I channeled it, I was able to verbalize what the sun was trying to basically share about itself as a consciousness. And I also channeled it for this pretty famous astrologer, Yasmin Boland, who does the Moonology deck. It's like the best selling oracle deck in the planet. I also channeled the sun for her, I believe, and started getting this understanding of the sun as a consciousness, and also a consciousness. It's a physicalized version of source in that sense, because everything kind of emanates from the sun consciousness. And it's also where energy can return to it for purification. Like if you use the sun consciousness, it's very powerful for purification and kind of burning away the old defining templates that create reality, to make new space for a new version of reality to happen. So it's it is a source energy.
Let me just clear that up, or repeat that. The sun consciousness is like source consciousness on a physical level.
Yeah.
And that is why our ancient ancestors were worshiping the sun.
They kind of had this
because
direct
they knew
understanding.
that is God coming through on a physical level.
And they understood it as, again, not this idea of like this God, like a religious God. It's like, you be good and you be bad and you go to hell and you come sit with me, It was like life emanated from this source, the sun. And, we can look at our plant life. Everything needs the sun to live. So it was this very... They understood that this was this very direct supply,
concentrated stream of consciousness,
of what you needed to be actually also even in abundance and in connection with life. We need this sun source to provide, and so it has this. It is a God energy in that sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's bring the circle in and ask them about these solar flares that are coming in, and that maybe the eclipse.
Yeah. Like
The eclipse for me is like, because it's in Libra anyways, and it's just like I'm a Libra, she's a Libra. I mean, you've been skating by. You've probably done enough inner
I've
healing.
done so much purification over the last 20 years. Oh my God.
You're
it
like,
still hits me, but not like a lot of my dear friends and clients and stuff who are sensitive to these energies but don't have that bigger picture, or just simply haven't done as much purification work.
Yeah, I'm in the trenches, guys,
She's
of
in
the
trenches,
purification.
yeah.
So I'd love to hear
energies.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll bring in the circle.
Okay.
And actually, you were asking before, how did I know that they were a quote unquote good energy?
Yeah,
as well?
when you had that knock you to the floor spiritual event, how do you know? How are you not sure that there is this energy coming and taking you away from the Bible? And like, because that's a fear of humanity.
A lot of people are afraid of
Yeah.
this sort of good energy and dark energy and stuff like that. And one thing I would say was that the intention that we were working with was very, we're always basically in the light, like we're calling in energy to support us at the highest vibration and frequency. And so when the energy came through, I mean, it's so powerful when it comes in. And some of you who are energy sensitive, when I bring in the circle, you're going to feel this even through the videos and, maybe go into a trance.
You guys. No space and time here.
That's right, we're quantum.
You will
in fact,
feel.
you've already received these transmissions, even though you're catching up with it later physically. But it was that the sense of the expansion and what started to happen, and then also just witnessing things like healing my dog's leg, who had been limping and having a problem leg for a couple of years. But also, once you understand, as they're teaching us, that everything just is energy, and the parameter of good or bad is something that comes from our mind, egoic framework, that when you go past that, when you operate beyond that sort of ego framework of good and bad, it's just pure consciousness that's coming in and taking shape and form, and you don't actually manifest these experiences of evil or badness once you've transcended that illusion, because it is just kind of like it's just energy taking form, basically.
All that is real is God. So there's not a hell. God's not going to send you. He loves you unconditionally, all consciousness.
I mean, I wouldn't say he, basically.
Okay, sorry.
Yes,
You're
I know
right.
that you've got some
Good
of that stuff like that, but because that does tend to keep that
It's
personified idea of a man god that's saying you're good or bad and you're going to go to hell. That is, but there have been people who have held a lot of this higher frequency energy, who have been embodied as men and also as women, who carry this pure frequency. And a lot of times they're what we identify as our spiritual leaders and healers on the planet and stuff like that. But consciousness,
so we are programmed to think that we are naturally but it's not a he. There's no gender.
It's just energy. As humans, we have gender. As humans, we have polarity.
Yeah.
It's part of the computer game of our reality when we're experiencing it through our minds, that there's he, she, good, bad, right, wrong, true, false. But once you drop the mind and this avatar that generates our reality, the kind of Game Boy character that we are, out there in consciousness, it's just an ocean of energy, and it's magnificent, and it's expansive, and it's love, and it's even more than love, and it's it's all of that. So there's such a purity about all consciousness. It's just amazing creative form and an infinite source. It's just
and that's the only thing that is real,
and that is what is real, and we are still real in the illusion as we experience it.
I'm just talking about in terms of like hell and the demons and all that stuff. It's like that was an illusion.
It's an illusion that our minds will create
because of polarity,
because
of the world that we're living in.
That's right.
It is the game we don't decide to play. Hey, let's create polarity and light and dark, and let's go through this video game, because I am a conscious creator that loves to have experiences.
Like just the same way people like to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to the movies to watch a big white light on the screen. I'd be
Full of
like,
love.
that is sauce and full of love. Like, people go to the movies to watch stories, and that's why we incarnate. We incarnate to experience
Yeah.
storylines.
Yeah.
But we're here to help people move into like more fun storylines.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the intention, rather than the suffering based
Yeah.
storylines that have been very predominant in the human experience. So, yeah, but let me bring in the
Yeah.
circle. They're always better than me at explaining these things, but sometimes I like to share how I've come to digest all this sort of thousands of hours of information about consciousness and creation in my version to share with you. But the circle are better, so let's bring them in. Ah, yes, indeed, dear ones, we are here, and we are most delighted to make connection with you here on another magnificent day in your earth plane. It's always a great delight for us to come through in this way, and we are truly here to be of assistance. So you had some curiosities about sun energy and sun consciousness. Is there a way that you would particularly like to ask to
Yeah.
bring forward a greater definition?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the astrology first. We just had a X class solar flare at like 7.12 yesterday. And I'm wondering, like, is there a specific, because you have described that it evolves humanity, is there specific flavors to each solar flare that is like, this one is actually to help this? Or how does that work?
Very good question indeed. And it's a slightly new angle for the channel to express. So we might take just a couple moments to download a little bit more of these broader concepts. So in the human experience, it has been generated by what we call the 3D grid energy structure. And that is, if you imagine all of these lights and the cameras and everything is running on an energy grid here, and at a certain voltage, it can run these lights, it can run these everything that you see on this set, the cameras, the microphones, everything. So that grid defines the way reality looks and is experienced as a potential. If you're on that grid, reality is going to stay within the certain parameters that grid can basically power up. And the human framework has been operating on this 3D grid for a long time. But it's kind of an old grid, and its limitations are apparent to the expressions of consciousness that exist here as human beings. So collectively, you decided, hey, we're going to do a renovation on this planet and in the human experience, and we're going to bring in this new 5D grid experience for people to have. And all energetic frameworks have energy invested in them, and they pull energy from source to sort of fuel the storylines that are controlled by them. Control is a tricky word because we want you to understand that it was still a free will choice to come in and have this experience, but they regulate the experience in that sense.
The rules of the game.
The rules of the game, that's
Okay.
right. Like this there's a lot that can happen here, but it's still going to operate within these parameters.
Okay.
So in order to set up a new energetic framework, there has to be the sort of the harvesting of the energy from everything that framework has been creating and generating, and to be put into this new energy grid, the 5D grid. And the 5D grid supports new storylines, a new set of parameters, a new game for humanity to explore, including more of this multidimensionality, more of this, even your movie show, the Matrix, kind of express some of these ideas where the main character could suddenly do karate because he downloaded a consciousness that was already saturated in that and programmed himself, and now he could do karate. And that was sort of this sort of fun idea. And that's as you're moving into this multi-dimensional framework, which basically means when you incarnated, you had a sort of limited parameter of who you could be that was defined by your egoic framework. You incarnated with that, with a certain set of interests, abilities, and through that, possibilities and potentialities that you could explore through your life. And then you played that out for as long as you could, and then you die. You kind of decay and entropy and death. What is happening now is that the parameters of limitation that you had when you incarnated, they were choices that were created before incarnation, and they are also amplified and strengthened by the conditioning and the programming that happens pre-birth, birth, from your parents, from your school. All of these things will define your core characteristics, qualities, your potentialities, your limitations. Now what is available is this understanding. But I am actually more than that, because I am part of Source. I am part of that God consciousness. I am part of everything. And if I can drop the aspects of my egoic framework that have been defining me in limitation, now I can actually open up and sort of download new programs, new consciousness. I can bring it in, and I can become more than the potential that I was defined by when I first incarnated. And so in this
more
way,
creative freedom change your life in an easier way.
Yes, sort of this sort of idea of reincarnating without dying. It's like, okay, I can incarnate more energy to expand who I am, because you are part of this magnificent, endless source stream out there in the infinite potentialities of all there is already consciousness that can do anything that you want. And when you can drop the egoic framework sufficiently and down to the biological level, which is a very deep level, you can really open up the possibilities for you. And you here as a creator, you here in this avatar, now you can learn karate much faster than early on, because you can already sort of download that intelligence of it by dropping the egoic framework.
So that's our future in a way, if we can go into that 5D grid framework, that we have much more easier expansion to just download a craft like that, or
an
a
interest,
hobby or interest.
A hobby, anything. And you're not so defined by the limitations that are the collective idea, even whether you go limitations around the concept of age, limitations around the concept of gender, limitations around the concept of ethnic origin, all of these things.
Wait. Okay, age. So that means that we can stop aging if we want to.
Certainly, when you, and so we'll bring this back to this sun consciousness energy here, so you can understand why you are having a lot of activity with the sun right now to support this process.
Okay.
Because things like age, it's a very deep, what we would call biological belief structure, meaning it is your human biology to go through decay and entropy of the body. There are biological codes, such as your DNA, that limit your potentiality of what you could experience biologically. But at a fundamental level of consciousness, all of that is still just energy, and it is all mutable. So your physical bodies feel very real. They feel very specifically physical. And even though you know that you have changes in your body, the parameter, the biological belief structure says, I am human, therefore I am going to go through decay and entropy and die at some point, because that is how biology works. But we like to talk about this idea of conceits, or the precepts of the play of the human reality. So if a cop show is a cop show, the basic conceit is that most of the people on the show are cops or perps or something involved with a cop show. That makes sense. They're not, if a cop show is a cop show, you don't usually have aliens in the show, right? Because it would be strange. There would probably still be some strange person causing trouble, pretending to be an alien. In the cop show, that is the conceit. You're not going to have William Shatner teleport in a cop show, because that is the conceit of the show. So the conceit of the human biology is that you have decay and entropy. But consciousness itself, outside of this framework, does not have to obey that. Energy in creation doesn't have to obey that. And at fundamental levels, at the core physics of who you are, the atomic, subatomic levels and beyond. Georgia isn't a physicist, so she can't channel super specifically about what that tiny particulate level that generates physicality at its core level. At that level, everything is still energy. It's still a mutable fabric of creation.
We'll have a whole episode on how we're going to reverse aging, ladies.
Indeed, indeed. And you already are. If you look at people of a certain age now, 100 years ago, they did not look the same.
Yeah.
They did not look the same. And yes, we can go into more of that at another time. But so if you understand that at a core level, things are mutable, things can still change. The very things that define your biological structure can still change at a core level of consciousness. However, you have held this collective biological belief structure for so long, something pretty powerful has to come in to change that, to shift that, to melt away the old templates and the grid work that holds you in that limitation of when this number of protons and neutrons get together and they vibrate at this level, they do this in the cell.
Yeah.
And then after a while, the cell doesn't know how to tell the body how to not do that anymore, or so on and so forth. Now, what's interesting is frequency first, manifestation second. As we come onto this wonderful show, we're going to repeat that concept so many times because it will help you understand a lot of what is going on. There's always frequency first, and the manifestation follows the frequency. What becomes materialized, physicalized, follows the frequency. The frequency comes first. The frequency is what shapes and defines. It is the undercurrent, the field that generates or supports physical reality in certain structures. So the 3D grid frequencies are different from the 5D grid frequencies. So when you have sun consciousness, which is this source energy, in that the source codes for what is relevant within its solar system come from the sun.
Say that one more time.
Yes, this is sort of a big concept for you. The source codes that come from the sun are relevant to what is within its solar system. And what we mean by that is, when you were talking earlier about a concept of God and this fabric of everything and the intelligence behind all creation, there is within that massive all consciousness God framework, there is intelligence that is relevant to a certain aspect of itself. And that is the source codes that work for that aspect of reality. So this chair has source codes. You are full of source codes. Those source codes is how intelligence is replicating itself or combining with itself to generate you. You are all the products of these sort of source codes that are innate in the frequency aspect. It is the intelligence behind creation, the intelligence before it becomes manifest. So in your physical reality, you have certain aspects of consciousness that generate the source codes for your reality here. So the earth has the source codes for what can come into physical creation manifestation here. Nothing can become physicalized on the earth without the earth sort of roughly producing and sharing the source codes for that to become physical here. Because the earth is the source of everything that becomes physicalized here on earth. It has to have that consciousness. It is the host of physical consciousness here.
Why it's important to ground, you guys,
This is why
because
it's
it
important
helps
to-
bring in the physical codes of your manifestation.
Yes, and it is why, and to ground to the earth, to accept that you're here, means you open up to receive more of those source codes. So it's very powerful for physical manifestation. The sun is the source of the source codes, ultimately, even for the earth itself and all the planets that this sun consciousness supports. So in that sense, it is the God of intelligence for all creation that would happen within your solar system that would be relevant to you. You as an individual don't want all the source codes of all consciousness because it would blow your circuits out. It would be way too much. So the sun, as an active participant in this evolutionary shift of humanity's consciousness, is also sharing new source codes that will help the human experience evolve. And also it is helping to break down the energetic grid work that supported the old creative reality.
So when we just had that solar flare, that X class 7.12 solar flare,
Yes.
that was doing something for us.
Yes, and people will feel affected by different solar events
Okay.
based on what their intelligence is calling in for their personal evolution. And there are solar flares that, yes, affect major grid frameworks. So
And
if you're
Earth,
talking about,
it's upgrading Earth to an effect. It goes to Earth,
it's a
absorbs all
it's
that,
a combination.
everything.
Yes, because Earth is working in partnership
Yeah.
with you and everything
Okay.
that is here. And this is why you want to sort of pay respect to your special host here, that is allowing you to experience creation here. This is why people will say, oh, it's Mother Earth, Father Sun, often, because the Mother Earth is holding you in its sort of womb of creation.
Oh.
But the Father Sun, just to help understand that sort of definition why people talk, the Father Sun is giving a lot of the I mean, if you were going to give the analogy, it's sort of like the sperm of life that the Mother Earth is holding. But it's just all of that intelligence. What will become manifest here is then held by the Earth. But the sun is sort of distributing new consciousness frequencies. And some people will feel really affected by certain flares. So the flares are like deliveries of this new intelligence. You can use the sun in many ways because you can use it as this purification center. When you're beginning to understand that you're actually conscious participants in this evolutionary shift. If you're listening to this now, you've become a conscious participant in it. Where before you may have been unconsciously just participating, going, oh, what is going on with the planet right now? And you're seeking around, trying to understand what is going on. It may have brought you to this podcast so you can have a more conscious understanding of this. Now, as conscious participants, even though it may still feel really chaotic and challenging at times, we're able to distribute to you some really powerful tools to use so you can go through this a little bit more graciously and work with the forces that are working with you for this evolutionary shift, rather than being caught in the confusion and just resisting that something really up-leveling and with that some upheaval is going on. So understanding that now, if you can understand the sun as being this massive purification energy, as well as the delivery, if you imagine it like the massive recycling center of consciousness, that which you are identifying, because the human collective, by its very nature, is identifying what it doesn't want anymore. It doesn't really want starvation anymore. It doesn't really want, though some people may enjoy war, a broad amount of the collective doesn't want endless war on the planet. It wants more benevolence, all of this sort of stuff. So as you're becoming more consciously aware of these old programs, you can kind of say, hey, I don't really want all this energy that's been invested in suffering to just continuously play out that frequency and generate more suffering-based stories. So instead, you can sort of say, hey, all this energy that's in the suffering storylines, the piece of it that I'm aware of, I'm inviting the sun consciousness to come and purify that energy like a big recycling plant. When you're finished with the the bottle of Coca-Cola, you can send it to the recycling plant and have it melted down, and something new can be created. So as you're sort of taking sips of all these different flavors you've had here on Earth, you can basically go, ooh, I don't like the bottle of war anymore. I'm going to throw that into the sun recycling plant, and then the sun offers new intelligence, a new replacement, a new bottle, a new flavor.
When you say
and you're ordering that through your heart.
Okay, I was going to say, like,
Yes.
I don't like the flavor of war and suffering and oppression and lack of abundance anymore. Is it just because, like, your heart already knows that, and so it knows how to receive the sun flares to purify that? Or do you have to actually physically call out and go, I am done. I've heard that there was a solar flare today. Can you take war out of here and the lack of abundance?
Yes, yes. It's a wonderful question, because you are both conscious and unconscious creators. And the reason why we direct you to work with the heart, obviously there are things you're very consciously aware of that you don't want. But because you have lived under these conceits, these precepts for so long, your mind doesn't really know what the alternative can be. If you have been programmed to run unconsciously from a survival program from the beginning of your life, you really don't know life beyond it. And people may say, well, if I'm abundant and I'm not living in survival, then I know abundance, I'm rich or whatever, and I'm not struggling with where am I going to get dinner tonight or whatever it is. But the survival consciousness is so embedded in the psyche and the manifestational creation cycles of the human collective, you don't know. Because, for example, you have never lived without war as a vibration and frequency on the planet. You've never lived without tribal conflict on some level. You've never lived without some degree of the concept of the hoarding of the resources of the planet, because it's all driven by deep survival programs. So you actually don't know.
Yeah.
You don't even know what to ask for in many ways, because even your best ideas of something that would be beyond this programming is still, when you call for it with your mind, in some way influenced by the mind that's still running this program. And so what we do is we come forward and we say, hey, we're going to just help you delete these programs. And because you don't really know how to make it better, we say, surrender to your heart, because within the heart there is the blueprint that can most graciously do this unraveling for you, and most graciously call in the energies at the right moment for you to rebuild the templates and the reality that you're in. Because if everything spontaneously deconstructed, it would really blow your minds. Even when a solar flare or a piece of intelligence, even what we're sharing right now and the frequencies that are coming with these words, for some people may be too much to process and maintain a congruent relationship to their own life as they've known it. So this is why the evolutionary shift is happening in stages, so you can maintain your sense of reality. You can maintain your sense of being in the cop show, for example, and you're playing out some of your cop show storylines, and then an alien shows up, and you're sort of going, well, what is that? And now I need to integrate, or that William Shatner suddenly teleports in, like Star Trek wise, on your cop show, and you're sort of like, but the cop show doesn't have teleportation, and your nervous systems are saying, well, this doesn't feel right. There's something wrong with this show. Like if we have the cop show and the teleporting's happening, there's something wrong. End production, something, there's a glitch in the
Yeah.
matrix. So what you're doing is you're going through an adaptive thing where in phases, certain elements of your programming is being deleted and allowing new things to come in, but you're maintaining some semblance of a congruent reality. If you look at the chaos right now on the planet, what that shows is, as even at the level that it's happening, it's already creating a fair amount of friction in your intelligence, and that's why there's a lot of upheaval happening. So it can't really happen any faster. It's happening in these waves. Some people opened up sooner, other people will open up later, and whatever piece of intelligence that's coming in through those solar flares and being kind of ordered by your heart blueprint saying, okay, they were a little upset about William Shatner teleporting in on the cop show, but they've kind of integrated it now, and now he's, part of the team. And he's part of the cop team, but he's also brought in, a new sort of whatever, a ray gun instead of a Glock or whatever it is that cops use, or it's a stun gun now, and that less people have to die, and this sort of thing. There's this integration happening,
So
where
it's
it's
a
like
slow process.
it's a
of
slow
this
process.
evolution of
Yes,
switching up
of
the
switching
game.
things up, and that's why.
And could be a little
It's a little jarring to your
jarring.
nervous system. That's what we're saying. When you have a cop show and William Shatner, people are like, "Well, hold on, this isn't what I ordered on Netflix or whatever." Like, why is he here? It sort of blows your circuits too much, and it's too disruptive. So it's an integrative process, and so we don't want you all to feel like every solar flare has to have some big meaning for you that you're supposed to understand. But just know that. If you're feeling it, or if you have a solar flare comes in and suddenly a lot of stuff starts to feel disruptive, it may be you're seeing some of that disruptive stuff because the new intelligence coming in is trying to replace some of your old programs that you've been running. And this is why people are like, why there's this evolution of human consciousness going on, why does it feel so bad right now? Because there's so much surfacing of the programs that were running underneath anyway. Many of the things you feel disruptive about were there anyway, controlling you subconsciously.
So it's like bringing out the shadow of the human collective. So the more light that's coming into our worlds, you have to bring up the shadow, the density to integrate and process, and to move out.
And for you to consciously choose, do we want to keep this?
Yeah, no.
So you're having a real flare up right now, for example, of war consciousness, and it feels very harsh. And if we're evolving, why is this happening? Because collectively, you're having the opportunity to decide, do we want to keep this program? Do we want to keep this? And you're seeing it at its most brutalized version, but we can tell you right now, it's always been brutal. It's always been savage. It's always been a source of tremendous suffering to the people on the sidelines, the warriors themselves, all of this. It has always been brutalizing. But your TV and news media now is really showing you.
Capturing it.
It is this, dear ones. Mm-hmm. Do you want to keep it?
Yeah, no.
And it hurts to see it, and it's disruptive, but it is giving you the chance to say, we want different programs. It isn't enough. So what has happened in the human collective is, of course, those who have sort of abstractly experienced the end results of war weren't aware that they were part of that system. So what we mean by that is that war was often carried out unseen by even the collectives who would experience the benefit of the spoils of war, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But
So you're saying that we didn't understand that we really didn't want that because we were seeing shifts after war, so we were allowing it to continue.
you were sort of allowing it because, of course, the people who are directly there on the front line,
saw
who
the
were getting there,
brutality
saw the
of it.
brutality, and people who were directly affected by it. But people, and for centuries, of course, wars were took place, and the riches were brought back to the countries that dominated that war and who won, and they got the power, and that meant more tea and crumpets for the queens and kings. But they weren't. Some of them were on the front line, obviously, but not everybody was viscerally experiencing the ravage of war because they didn't see it.
Yeah.
You have to remember, dear ones, you are living in a time of media that you see and know about countries and other places on the planet, and even now in the universe. Immediately, you have information. Communications has given you insight. These other places exist. And this gives you a lot of creative freedom because now you actually understand, oh, wow, I could go to Thailand and be on this beach. For such a long time in the human collective, information traveled as far as you could maybe ride a day on a horse or walk even before.
Yeah.
Then the people came back on boats and ships and said, oh, there's this over there and that.
Yeah.
But nobody was viscerally experiencing what was going on in those explorations other than the people who were exploring it.
Yeah.
Now, so this created a kind of ability to receive the benefits or suffer from it.
Just have it in the underbelly of humanity without understanding to deal with it, that it is running a lot of our trauma programs.
A lot of the trauma programs,
yeah.
indeed.
So now it's being revealed through the evolution of solar flares and higher intelligence.
And the communications that are displaying this. So it's being, you are getting to see it. Do you want it? And consciousness matches your free will choice on this. It matches your free will choice.
If I say I don't want it and our audience says I don't want it either, what can we do right now to transmute that energy into something new?
Yes. So we had one more little point we wanted to. That's all right, dear one. You ask marvelous questions. You're really wonderful. So, but there was one other little point that we wanted to share about this, these choice points that you're at right now, because consciousness respects your free will choice on this. We want you to understand why many people are feeling this very deeply. Many people who are living in much safer places in the world feel the hardship of life mentally and emotionally, and they may be having storylines in their own life which seem they're significant to them, but it's not the same as being ravaged on the front lines of war. So, but it hurts. People are hurting because the illusion of separation that the human construct is operated under meant that you're connected by this fabric of life. So you could be at the end of that spectrum where you are benefiting from the wealth that is accrued through one group dominating another and have, relatively speaking, a life of luxury compared to the people's lives who've been destroyed by war. So you are connected in that way. But now you also feel that. You're feeling the full spectrum. So your personal storylines may be about someone cut you off in traffic and you feel really mad about it because you feel threatened by it, but you're actually still energetically connected to all those people suffering at the front lines of those creations. And if you weren't, you wouldn't feel the need to make a choice energetically about it.
Okay.
And that's why people are more sensitive. People sort of say, oh, everyone's a snowflake these days, and everyone's sensitive and triggered. The reason why you're getting
A
triggered
snowflake.
is because you are connected by the tapestry of the oneness creation, and you are feeling these things deeply. And through that process of feeling that, whether you're conscious of it or not, through that process of feeling things differently, you may not know that it's the reason why you're so upset this day is because there's a war going on over there, and that there has been war throughout humanity. Is for you to say, I don't want to feel this pain. I don't want to suffer, and I don't want humanity to suffer. And that's what's sending the rockets out of desire to the sun and to everything to say, hey, we need a new program here. We need
some
program.
solar flares up in here to
and
up
the
level.
sun says, all right, here you go.
Okay.
But what's happening first is these things are getting amplified first so you can see them. So you can actually be more distinctive and more discerning about what you're choosing to move into your next phase of humanity with.
Okay.
That's why there's so much amplification going on. And some of that energy is pushing it up for you to see, because the universe is going to respond to your choices now. So what can you do? Getting back now to this very important question. When you are feeling a great deal of pain or suffering or emotions about things that you can't even tell what they are about a lot of the times, remember it's because you are connected to the fabric of all consciousness, including everything that is invested in the human experience, past, present, and future.
We are all one, guys.
You are all one. This is the visceral understanding of we are all one, not just a t-shirt slogan. It is you are all one. So in knowing that you're all one, when you're feeling this pain, what we want to give you now is the way more powerful tools in which to work with this energy, rather than bickering with each other, which is operating from the little me mind, is to access that power of the all consciousness, which all of you have access to through the heart center. And we have shared before this Infinity 8 tool, which helps to purify collective energy.
I don't think you shared that on the podcast.
Perhaps not on this one, but a lot with our dear ones.
Okay.
So when you feel energy that feels way bigger than you, you get cut off in traffic, or someone bumps into you at the supermarket and you feel like crying.
You just feel out of control energy.
Out of so much emotion that feels bigger. You're probably tapping into, that incident has tapped you into some collective energy that's along the same themes. You don't feel safe. You feel threatened. You feel like something's going to be taken from you, because out there in the fabric of the human consciousness, it is going on somewhere. So what we want you to do is to bring all that energy into your heart and run it through this Infinity 8 from the heart center, going up around through this point here, which is the sort of the heart of you is all consciousness. And the heart is a powerful gateway for you to tap that, what I've been calling the sort of the brain of God, the master consciousness. So you're basically saying, when you bring something into your heart, you're saying, hey, all consciousness, I've identified this pain point in the human experience. I'm feeling it and it's out there somewhere. I'm going to bring the energy of this into my heart, and I'm surrendering it over for the all consciousness to help clean up. Because, Mia, no matter how much you went out there and said, I'm going to help end war, no matter if you volunteered, if you went there, if you were bandaging soldiers, if you did, the amount that you could do with your little me, your singular egoic identity, is so much smaller than what you can tap if you go into your heart. And for you, dear ones who are watching this, you're probably still watching this in relative safety, that you have the opportunity to sit here and contribute to this purification of these planetary templates by doing this work. It's the best way that you can contribute to lessening the amount of energy that's invested in those storylines. It's how you start to divest into this conceit. This conceit that has imprinted this. It's like, it's your way of saying, you know what, I'm pulling the energy out of the cop show. I'm not going to subscribe to that channel anymore. I'm going to pull the energy out of that cop show. I'm going to give it to my heart and say, heart, make a new show. Here's all the energy. Here's the money I was paying for Hulu or Netflix that where that cop show. I'm divesting my creative consciousness energy out of there. I'm putting it in my heart and consciously choosing create something different, something better. And you surrender to the heart because the heart is never run by the mind's programs. So it knows the reality. It knows how to generate a reality beyond these programs that you don't know how to create reality without.
So I'm going to explain this because I've been working with the Circle of Light for a few years now. When you are thinking about war and the emotion of not feeling safe or whatever it's bringing up, and just war in general,
or any storyline that gets to
Yes.
you personally, suffering, animal abuse, whatever's
correct.
your hot topics, loss of freedom, power,
Yeah.
control. It doesn't matter. Pick your
whatever's basically
what has charge for
if
you.
war is let's just use the example. So
Most
war,
people would agree war is a fairly gnarly,
especially right
creation on
now
Earth,
with
yes.
things going on. So when you think about war, in order to neutralize and transmute that energy, if you resist it, it'll persist.
Yes, it'll persist.
And to create more of a oneness with it, you bring it back into your heart.
Into your heart, yes.
And your heart will know what to do with your energy. And what you do with it is love and accept it. You don't go, fuck war. I hate war. This, that. And everybody, that's resisting it.
You would naturally have those feelings initially, which
Yeah.
helps you to define your new desire point to live without it. So that's can be part of the process, to feel angry, to feel upset. However, if you want to access the immense power of the all consciousness to actually change this storyline, if you resist it, you are staying in your little me. You're staying in the limitation of the little me. And from that place, you could go and protest and you could take certain actions that would...
But that's your single identity
But
trying
you're-
to just change
it's
it.
as
You're a little
much as
person.
you can do, one
You're
person.
not activating
You're
the
not
God
activating.
consciousness
That's right.
that can transmute the
Indeed,
energy.
yes. So when you can step back outside of your little me, you can honor the desire of the little me to live beyond a paradigm driven by war. And then you can say, all right, this is a job that's bigger than me. If I want to access bigger energy and all the energy that's been invested in war, we could take all that and put it into something new. I have to stop resisting it as energy, as consciousness. So when you stay in the judgments, you're always creating a line of resistance, which will keep you in only the power that the little me has, maybe writing to your senator and saying, don't do this anymore. When you sit with the energy of all of that, and everyone can do it right now, whatever topic is got a lot for you, sit with the energy, get out of the storyline, and recognize that even though this energy is in the shape of something that you don't like or don't want anymore, at its core, it is just energy. And when you stop resisting it, two things happen. You have access to it. You have the access to it to bring it into your heart. And the non-resistance actually dissolves the shape that that energy has been formed into, which is the war form. We like to give this example of H2O. H2O as water. At one frequency, it's water. At another, it's ice. At another, it's steam. Water itself, or H2O itself, is not good or bad. It's your preference. Did you want ice in your glass, or did you want to steam your cappuccino? It all has a purpose somewhere. When you don't resist, you allow that mutability we were talking about at the beginning. You want to change the way biology is written. Don't resist the energy that is actually writing the biology into its programs.
And using
what you resist
love,
persists.
love and acceptance to
Love and acceptance
transmute that.
Because love is non-resistance. Acceptance is non-resistance. And you, here's the thing, as a human construct, you have to understand that you are creating all of these stories. So if you hate the part of yourself that is creating war, whenever you perceive it, you are, even if it's on the news, you are actually creating it on some level. If you hate
in your movie projector.
in your movie projector, if you hate the part of you that is creating it, you're keeping that part in separation from you. And when you keep that part in separation from you, it acts out more unconsciously and produces more of it. When you become conscious of it and you accept it and you love it, you're really bringing that aspect that generates that into your heart and saying, and now something better, thanks very much. Let's bring this part of me that's only known war, because it could be a past life aspect of you that constantly lived in war. If war is a hot topic for you, again, as we say, starvation could be a hot topic for you. Puppies could be a hot topic for you. Whatever is a hot topic for you, it doesn't matter. If it's a hot topic for you, it means it's got a lot of energy for you to divest from the matrix that's been creating it, bring it into your heart, and let your heart rewrite it. Because your desire points are already going out, and the sun is going, oh, whole bunch of the population doesn't want this anymore. All right, we're going to send you new consciousness. But at first, your biology that's used to running those programs of war, because it's cellularly in your nervous system, is like going, but we need war to protect ourselves. The survival system says part of you says we need war to protect ourselves. But consciousness does not have to obey this. So again, when that big energy comes in, the solar flares, if you feel affected, relax, receive it, let it come into your body and rewrite these core biological belief structures that are actually keeping you in your programs of suffering, entropy, death, decay, disease, etc., etc.
Changing our reality.
This is how you change your reality. And when you take it in physically, it changes your material, physical projection. Not thinking and feeling better, experiencing a better physical reality.
Well, I think that we can end the episode there. That was a good one.
Yes.
And we'll do another episode about maybe the
all
eclipse.
The things,
The
yes.
eclipse and a
We're happy
follow-up
to share.
continued episode.
Yes. And even we could say just briefly, eclipses, astrology, it's sort of an interaction of energetic fields that will create and generate different feelings, sensations, thoughts. That's how that sort of framework works. But we can certainly talk more about that in another episode.
In the next episode, baby.
Yes. We adore you all so very much until we're meeting in this way or some other way. We love you very much. And for now, we'll say goodbye, dear ones. Goodbye. Bing.
Bing.
I'm
She's back.
She's back. The comedian.
We're going to segue from war to...
Woo! What's going on, people? We'll be here all week.
Well, that was cool.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking our question. Mia asked great questions. It's really wonderful because you've worked with the circle. Yeah. You vibe with the circle. Mm-hmm. I feel like we have a real co-creation here because you know, or it's coming through you to ask the questions and have that intention to bring through some super powerful information. That
really powerful
that
information
you're receiving, yeah.
And then to do the to-do list of how to really alchemize it, because it's like, just let go of the belief system, or just alchemize it. You're like, well,
how do you do that? And of course, we have a lot of those teachings on our website, Circle Evolution, and we have boot camps about that. Like we're, not not being the used car salesman of consciousness here. Like, go to my website, and with this, we throw in this.
No,
and this.
But really, truly, that's what I did.
Yeah,
I went and studied this work with her, and she has boot camps and stuff.
And we do the Monday Night Awakening. That is a wonderful portal where a whole group of people gather with this collective intention. Collective intention is super powerful, so even all the people who are watching this, whenever you're watching this at any point in place and time and space, if you're hit by some of these things that we're saying or they're saying, that collective intention and the power of bringing this out to more people as we get more collective intention working on this process together. And that's why I love Monday nights, because they're such a powerful gateway, because a whole bunch of people gather with this collective intention, and it brings through all this special information. Everyone on that call is so valuable.
Okay, let me just touch on the Monday Night Awakenings, because I do not like to miss
to miss it.
Yeah, a Monday night transmission, because every Monday, You just call in. You're not on like a Zoom where you stare at the people.
It's not interactive.
You lay down and you listen, and the Circle of Light every Monday will do a transmission on you or for you, talking about whatever is going on
It's like
currently.
teachings, energetic transmissions.
But then you get energetic attunements that day. You get,
and it helps. So many people are going through this process unconsciously, which makes it really hard when you don't have any roadmap to what's happening. That's why most people are like losing their minds out there, because it's like the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and what am I supposed to do about it? It's just like a nightmare. Even coming into a conscious portal, it starts to alleviate some of that pressure in your system, at least of the confusion, to get those kind of updates
and so much more. The Monday night, it's really like, if you're really interested in shifting humanity and consciousness, get on the Monday Night Awakenings, because
it's not that expensive, and you get access to our whole library of over 1,000 recordings, nearly 1,000 recordings of all the transmissions since 2008. If you really feel called to the work, it's either just even the library or the life
guys,
course.
It's a big.
I mean, I don't like to use car salesman of consciousness, but it is a very, very special gathering.
Yeah.
And everybody who's part of it is really doing their piece.
Yeah. And I'm sure if you're attracted to this podcast, you are interested in
on some level,
changing humanity and your life and the world, and bringing everybody, bringing all of this
bringing
together.
us into the oneness and finding that way. How do we have this melting pot of so many different people with different desire points?
Yeah. Having everybody win.
Everybody win, because that's the beauty of the heart centering. We don't understand this because we've been creating reality so long from our mind, which is survival, which is hierarchically based and me versus you, that there is actually a way to experience creation where everybody wins. We don't
through
know
being
that
in your heart. How beautiful is that?
Because the heart creates beyond that linearity of me versus you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard, it's scary to let go of the mind that wants to control and go into that surrender. But when you see how the heart like resolves stuff,
game changer. This is major work. So I'm happy that you're here listening to this.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being part of it.
Yeah, you can find Georgia on circleevolution.com. And if you want to come on the podcast and join us in the studio and interview the Circle of Light.
You get to ask questions about whatever you want, whatever realm you're interested in.
Yeah. There's a link below. You can click the link or go to my website, spreadyourthirdeye.com, and fill out the form. And maybe we'll be seeing you in the studio next.
Yes.
Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to send this to your spiritual bestie. We love you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Yay! I will